Hello and welcome. Thank you for tuning in for this episode of the AI Playbook with 33A. I'm Ellie Nicolau, your host for today, and today I have Chris Bradshaw with me. Chris is an innovation consultant, product strategy director at Infinum, and he's also running a podcast called Delivered. Hi and welcome, Chris.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here. I'm very excited to talk about AI and all the future of what's coming with this, exciting technology. So yeah, really happy to be here and big fan of the 33A concept as a whole. So yeah, thank you.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. I would like to hear more about your story. You
Absolutely,
have a
yeah.
pretty exciting background.
I have a long background. I mean, I've done technology now for say 20 years. I did my degree actually in this as well, so applied computer technology and business before there was a talk of AI or digital. So I spent maybe my 20s doing the work. So I did IT, I did coding, I did design, did engineering. So pretty nerdy stuff, but that was across corporates and public sector. And then eventually fell into music, which I'm pleased to say was a lot more fun. Luckily for that point, I then got into, I guess, Web 2. So when basically Facebook and social media started to come in its ascendancy. So I moved into that quite quickly, and I guess for my first business doing Facebook apps. So I've always had the kind of entrepreneurial lean as well as just doing the work. And then my 30s to 40s, I always see as like just managing and growing teams and companies around the work. So I then built an agency. Then in that agency, we doubled the size, turned it into a big group of agencies that I CEO for a while. That was fun until it wasn't, and then I left that and did my own company. So I've done lots of digital agencies and things alongside just doing the work. But I guess my passion point really is how do you really get people around an idea and leverage their collective intelligence to just deliver great value and sort of validate and learn along the way before you build the innovation. So from doing this for a long period of time, it isn't just the technology that needs to be orchestrated, it's actually the people. So I guess the last few companies I've done have been around how do you facilitate innovation? How do you grow companies with collective ideas? And that led me to where I am today, really, which is, yeah, I built and run a strategy team at Infinum at a global scale, I guess. So we're just spreading the good word of workshops, strategy, and now this new term, AI, which everyone seems to be excited about, which is a big passion point of mine. So that, I guess, leads us to today where, yeah, I've done the 33A training, loved it, applied it into the companies that I work with. And yeah, it's been a pretty hectic journey. I think I've done maybe 7 businesses in the last 20 years, plus a bunch of other interesting things for better or worse. So yeah, that's a really big nutshell of me. But yeah, done a few things.
How did you discover 33A in the AI design sprint?
Well, it actually found me, funny enough, because I spent the last 5 years doing things around the workshop space and the facilitation space. I guess I've done quite a few keynotes and live workshops just as a way to kind of like build brand. And I was talking at an event in 2023 in the Netherlands, and the first speaker actually at that event, I believe, was a guest on this particular podcast. Shout out to Jörg Winterhoff, and he was basically talking about this thing called the AI design sprint. Now, I've done design sprint for maybe 7 or 8 years. It's the first thing I actually learned back in 2016, 17. So I was like, okay, I know what this guy's going to do. And then he showed me the live version of this with the big printouts, the AI cards, all that. And that just sort of made me realize that AI isn't just the tech, it's actually the ideation and opportunity mapping around what do you even do with AI before you get to the tech. And I guess from there, that kind of led me down the path of I need to do this. And thanks to that one presentation, I connected with 33A and trained, and yeah, it's now part of my skill set. And I'm super happy that presentation happened because I guess it's led us to today's conversation.
Yeah, I've heard this a lot that, oh, I didn't find the AI design sprint, it found me.
Yeah, somehow it got to me, but it just resonated because I was like, it frames the problem that I think no one talks about, which is what do you do with AI? Like, how does it address the human aspect? How does it address things like ethics? and the people, versus just what I think AI generally gets conceived as is a technology problem that has to be done right now. Where what I love about the 33A structure that I saw was it addresses the real like human aspect as a priority, which, I'm a big fan of humans. So yeah, love that.
And you're now working with companies, helping them prepare for the more autonomous future. How has your work evolved?
Yeah, I guess it's the latest obsession of mine, which is the autonomous future. And I guess because, at the human level, in theory, AI is the last thing we have to invent, but it's the biggest paradigm shift, I believe, to affect human beings and their work. At the business level, I think it's probably the biggest competitive edge you can give a company. And what I've seen is, my whole lens has always been, how do you improve people's either working lives, businesses, maybe personal lives with innovation and technology? And I guess now AI is more normalized. I sort of see that as a way to leverage that technology in the best possible way to kind of really speed up the evolution of a company. And what I've really found is that it's not just about kind of the tools and the toolkits you see online right now, pick your favorite, chat GPT or Midjourney or whatever. It's really like preparing them for more than just efficiency. It's preparing them for what I keep saying is the autonomous age, where things will become more automated or augmented. I sort of believe where we are now is, we've had the analog age, we've had digital age, and we're kind of coming out of that now. The next age will be autonomous. And what I mean by that is it's about how do you empower human beings to work side by side with AI, because I believe that's where the best results are created, because you can empower people with the tools to kind of work faster, better, smarter. But on a macro scale with businesses, you can really get them to drive faster innovation, faster, outcomes, and just really, I think, not get left behind in the wake of what I probably deem is like as big as, the industrial revolution in a sense. And it's here now. So it's really affected me personally as a lens, but also how I work as a premise, because not only do I facilitate and run workshops now with an AI assistant, we'll call it. I had this stupid idea of like building my own LLM, large language model, called Chris Bopshaw rather than Chris Bradshaw. And that sits with me in these kind of like workshops now, where if we're working with humans doing ideation, I can have the AI working with me too to also ideate. So we have this kind of collective intelligence working side by side to really speed up either results or give us a lot more possibilities to what we can lean into as a solution to a problem or a challenge. And yeah, I think off that level, I'm trying to be the proof of concept where I use AI to leverage what I do more in real time with people, and then really helps me then show them the way and say, look, you could be using this at your company to reduce those laborious jobs that people don't want to be doing, to free up more time for more important creative work, or just to give people more scope of outcomes. If you're a designer using AI as a partner, rather than doing those 2 or 3 designs to show a client, you could do maybe 10, 20 designs to, give them more options. So yeah, really, it's affected me in every way. And I guess I've really just gone all in on it, because I just believe, for me, and I said this recently, I think in a LinkedIn video, I believe 20% of the work on any product, problem or challenge is discovery. But that 20% really unlocks the rest of the 80% in the best possible way, where it's actually de-risking it, it's making sure people are aligned around a problem. And then actually you can start to talk about AI in a meaningful way to go, how is it going to help? What data do we need? What people do we need? And you sort of bake that into your long-term strategy to make sure things are done the right way the first time. So yeah, its short answer is it's affected every every side of the working life for me, but also how I help businesses and people and teams deliver solutions.
Sounds like in the future, each person will have a bot, like a personalized AI. How easy is it to make something like that now, like the bot show you've created?
So this is the thing, like I feel like, so I started looking at this thing years ago when it was early stages, where you had to be an engineering mindset to do these things, and it was quite complicated. You had to install like Python onto your computer and install your own version of any local LLM. Now I think it's a lot more packaged and easier to use, so it's not that difficult. But like anything with AI, I think it's about knowing what to use it for than it is just how easy it is to set up. It's about what's the use case you can add it to your workflow and then use that and bring that out into like a business workflow. So, for example, I use a lot of things now known as synthetic research or synthetic testing. And what it means is, we can do workshops and figure out ideas and think they're the best ever. And we've done some great, sketches and post-its in the session, high-fived, and all the stakeholders buy into it. Then you go and test it with human beings. And maybe they have a level of unbiased feedback, which is great. But what if you could test that with a synthetic persona, i.e. an AI, in rapid succession, so you have more feedback to maybe help you think about different things that you haven't considered from a human point of view. And I think it's again, I try not to paint the picture of it's there to replace anybody. It's not that. It's just to give additional power and context to people and teams to deliver these things. And I think the tech is a lot more accessible now than people think. But I think also we're in this exciting time. Like, I personally feel we're in the most exciting time ever as humans with this tech. But it's like choice paralysis. There's so many tools, so many people saying, here's a cheat sheet to use this, that, and the other. And I think it's about trying to get alignment and prioritization of like, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And where do you go in sequential steps? And again, going back to the 33A framework, that's what I love about it. It really helps you just narrow down this noise to a single problem and then really take people through that journey, whether they're technical, not technical, leadership, not leadership, it doesn't matter. It really helps empower them on a decision, even before you start talking about data and tech and things like that, which, I think is a really important mindset at this point. Where we have to be really conscious of our choices and our way we empower people with this technology. So yeah, it's easier than people think to do AI stuff, but it's actually harder to find purposeful like reasons to use it and make purposeful outcomes for companies.
How have you used the AI design sprint with your clients so far?
So there's a couple of I was thinking about it actually this morning. What's the best solutions and things I've used it for? And I'll give you two examples, because one's really fun and future thinking, and one was around an automotive, a large German automotive company. Maybe pick a guess or who it might be. But they were looking at the idea of where can they go in 2050 to be a more sustainable company, but aligned with AI at its core. And this was really about bringing together a group of really smart people who've never met before, different backgrounds, to kind of look into this challenge and figure out how we do it. They're basically coming to give their, again, collective intelligence of their backgrounds, but they have no knowledge really of AI so much. They don't really know too much how to leverage it. So using the design sprint methodology, and then layering the AI component to that is a great way of just like, first of all, educating them like what AI can actually do, first of all, like giving them context. And I actually dug out these cards just for inspiration this morning. So hopefully people are watching this on the live version. These cards, I love these like visual, colorful cards. It helps really get rid of the meta of what AI can do, and it gets it into more real use cases. And really my job was to facilitate this group of people to go, here's what we can do with AI. Let's work out together what use cases we want to do with this, group of people. Then essentially let's visualize it, prioritize it, and then turn it into, I guess, a use case to commit to. And then even in that session itself, we kind of leveraged, what I would deem as fairly basic AI tools like Midjourney and ChatGPT, just to then refine and visualize what the group wants to do. And just by doing that, we then took that premise to the kind of wider high-ranking officers in this company and did a presentation sort of talking through it, saying, here's how we picked all our different ideas and options. Here's how we whittled them down to the best use case and how it affects different parts of the company. But we've also considered things like ethics and people. And then here's a kind of visual version of it / a North Star we've created as well with AI, just to kind of give them a little bit of a nod to that technology. So that was a really great one, because it just showed me that you can take a complete group of strangers, completely not AI, agnostic, or they don't really know much about AI, and you can leverage the framework to really leave them with a sense of, we understand AI much more now. We've now come up with a solution together on AI. And I think that harmonization of people through the framework is really a powerful tool to have in any facilitator or consultants or workshopping person's toolkit. It's a great outcome. So that was one example. And the reason why I'm sort of throwing two is that was more like strategic future thinking, how you can leverage the framework for that. The second one was much more practical in how to, the case study is, how do you bring financial freedom to Africa? What that means is, how do you give financial access to a fintech product anywhere in the region, based on the fact there are different banking regulations and, there's loads of barriers there. And why, again, using the framework of the AI design sprint was great was, it was essentially, yes, we're going to build a product like most workshops kind of plan for. And yes, it's going to use Web3, that kind of buzzword from like 4 or 5 years ago now, as the MVP, the minimal viable product, to kind of launch into Africa and test. But what I was really focused on was, what's the long-term benefit we can use AI for? And that really came to a different lens for the client, because they were thinking of, we're just going to launch and try and run, a banking style app in the region. Where actually what we were trying to use was, from the AI design sprints kind of process, was, could we then leverage feature improvements with AI, for example, like predictive market analysis, or can we use AI driven risk management for people on this financial app? Or can you even do things like autonomous fraud detection, where essentially you're trying to lower the risk of anything bad happening and lowering the usage of people's time looking at all the different transactions. So there's some features there that came out of it. But actually, even stuff around like a pricing strategy, like, AI can really help an app with pricing as much as it can do features, i.e. you could use things like, predictive like discounting for frequent users, or you could use like dynamic subscription tiers. So say the product's growing really rapidly, we can maybe do slightly lower costing based on, adoption rates and just things like that. And looking at the market, comparing with competitors, bundle optimization. So what I'm saying is, just by having these kind of AI driven opportunity mappings and really thinking about now and the future wrapped around the frame, it really gave the client really like strong growth and delivery kind of planning, both in the feature side and the kind of growth side. And it also just highlights risks as well, which is the kind of final point I'll make, is by talking about these things and really getting into the future stuff, it kind of gives you, things around, for example, in this case, do we need to keep retraining the models? Do we need to keep training it on regulatory audits in different regions because they're different? What are the data and privacy security measures we have to take here if you're talking about people's financial, assets, and also like what level of, I guess, reliance can we put on an AI to recommend certain things? So I guess in short, like the two examples I'm giving is, it's great for both just thinking of a strategy and really getting people wrapped around that and aligned as a company to start leading them into the autonomous future. But also it can be used in a super practical way if you know what the product is you want to do, and you really deep dive into what the product could be with AI baked into it. And again, future gaze a bit as well as look at the present. It can be a super powerful piece that just really, unlocks value all over the place. And most importantly, it really unlocks, I think, trust between, client and consultant to, think about the fact that we've really thought about the customers today, but also the business and customers of tomorrow. So yeah, big fan, as I keep saying.
Yeah, the capabilities of AI are so many. My question is, how realistic are all the things that you mentioned? Because data is a mess in most companies.
Yeah.
And in the AI design sprint, first we open up to ideas, creating the solution that we would like, the ideal. And then we look at this, we assess how realistic it is with data and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, from your experience, how realistic is the implementation afterwards?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think this is where a lot of skepticism creeps in with AI. It sounds great, but can it be done? And I'm going to quote. There's a good friend of mine who's an AI expert, Tim Daines, and he talks a lot about the minimal viable data sets. And you're right. I mean, I think just to keep mentioning the framework as well that 33A have is once you've done that strategic work and you want to get into like, okay, how do we validate it's possible? The data sources are super important. And we know that's part of the process where we can deep dive into that and figure out what data do you have? Where does it live? Is it talking together? Is it normalized? Can it be used? Because as we know, AI solutions are as good as the data that gets fed into it, right? For the knowledge base. So I think things are really possible. I think most things are possible to answer your question, but it's not about racing into it and just doing it. And this is why I'm big on like I'm bullish on strategy and kind of bearish on products. So what I mean is I'm always about we need to do the strategy first and then think about the long-term product build as opposed to just let's just build the thing. So I think it is lots of these things I'm talking about are possible, but we have to really be conscious of the data itself, the technology itself, and also the resource around that. So essentially, who are the people that are going to be, managing, handling data, feeding the AI the data? What's the technology ecosystem you've got in your business? Do you need a tech partner to come in and maybe facilitate that? So, for example, at Infinum, we have an AI audits. So on our website, we have like, a paper about the state of the industry. If people want to work with us on an AI idea, we go through a bunch of questions just to even understand like where they are in this journey. Because like you're saying, an idea is great, but the reality of an innovation being built and launched, there's worlds apart. So really, I sort of see again the AI design sprint is like kind of like bridge between the idea to the innovation. And only with that you can prove what is viable and not viable. So I'm always very optimistic about this. I'm always like that could be possible and most likely will be possible. But my goal as I guess a facilitator of this craft is to make sure people can actually get from idea to innovation with the resources they have. Because as we know everyone has like unlimited ideas, unlimited opinions on tech, but only a limited resource. So really, with the strategy, that is basically what we create with for the 3A framework. It really helps them prioritize what can be done, when it can be done, and how do we test all the time along the way with MVPs, POCs, proof of concepts. So yeah, I believe most things can be done, especially as the technology becomes more normalized in business and the world. I think the problem isn't the ability to do it. I think it's the strategy and the way you go about starting that adventure, to figure out the business AI solution, both on data, human side, and, the tech capabilities in the business.
And could you provide some tips for consultants on how to effectively implement the AI design sprint with their clients?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love to think about this in steps, really. And again, I'm going to be, not into the framework somewhat, but I have this a 4Cs approach that I've learned from my workshopping trainings in the past. And it starts with collecting. So really, the consultant really needs to start from a place of, okay, what opportunities exist in the business, but also what business units need to be addressed in that business, because most likely an AI solution is going to affect not just one department, it's going to ripple through the whole business. So really collecting all the ideas and opportunities from the team, which also educates them back at the same time, which is the beauty of this process. Then understanding what business units can be affected. And then from there, you can kind of move to the next C, which is kind of the choose factor, which is kind of how do we then choose which of these solutions make the most sense for the business, and how do we implement it across the business units one by one. And I think for me, that's one of the most exciting parts, because that's when the people in the workshop can really start to understand how it's going to affect their remit in the business and where it affects the whole company as a general kind of machine. And then kind of the third one really, which I guess is the most fun part of this process, is like the create phase, which is, can we build use cases around this? So if we're picking out cards, talking about things that are, AI understands markets, geographics, and competitors, you could use that as a potential market intelligence tool for marketing teams to, start to analyze the market to target better and faster the right audience to market products and services to. So the create phase is really good because I think the people in the session really start to lean into, oh yeah, we could use this for this and for that. And you can start to see these light bulb moments go off, and they're like, even though I'm not an engineer or an AI enthusiast, I'm actually thinking in AI terms. And and I think once we have that creation process in place with solutions and use cases, then really just talking about the bit that scares, I think, a few people about this topic is, how does it affect people in the company? What's the ethics behind this? Like, what's the responsibility we have as people to navigate around this kind of new tech? So from a consultant's level, it's really taking people on the journey, and on that journey, it's kind of a back and forth dance you do where you're asking them questions so they can kind of answer you to help build a solution, but they're also learning at the same time. And I guess the most powerful part then really is once you have all this in place, and you've got your solutions done, and you maybe done like a bit of prioritization, this comes to like the commit part, the fourth C, which is, let's prioritize what we do first, where and when, what departments will we start with. And then most importantly, again, like you mentioned earlier, once you have that one or two, key solutions ready to go, okay, what data do we have to support that? What people do we have? What tech do we have? So really from a consultant's level, I think it's understanding intimately how to, work with groups and group dynamics, of course, with this kind of framework, but just understanding that you can really take people through a journey over a space of, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And by the end of that, you can actually have a really compelling decision made to go, okay, the company's going this way to focus on this AI thing, and everything else is on the backlog. And we'll talk about that in the future, so nothing's forgotten. But we've now almost drowned out the noise of all these ideas and AI possibilities to just go, this is what we're going to do as a company. Let's move ahead. So yeah, I think consultants have a great responsibility in their hands when they run this, but I also believe the outcome they can create is super pivotal and important to companies too, who come on the journey. And I think from my experience, a lot of people who do this, this journey, this AI design sprint with me, they've always been delighted at the end because they've gone, man, we've done a lot in such little time. That is crazy, and we've made a choice and we've learned as well. So you're empowering people along the way. So yeah, be the guide, not the hero. That classic statement.
When you have a new client who is really new to AI, how do you communicate the AI design sprint to them so that they understand what it is?
So
and why it's needed.
Absolutely. If I'm really honest, and this is in no way it's targeted to the AI design sprint or any sprint, I don't actually talk about them, about workshops or sprints, if I'm honest. I never focus on, it's a little bit like for me, I had a plumber around yesterday fixing something at my house. I didn't really ask him what he used to fix the problem. He just fixed the problem. And I was like, that's what I'm paying you for. Awesome. So I usually start with talking about their business. Again, they're the hero. So what's the thing they're trying to achieve? What's the struggle they're having? What's the pain they're having or the dream they're trying to get to? And once I understand that, I then talk about, okay, what are the outcomes that will come? If we cross that bridge together, what's that happy place? And, 9 times out of 10 at the minute, I think people are so obsessed with efficiency through AI. I see it being much bigger. Like, I feel like there's much more to give than that. But right now, it's maybe, automized efficiency. So once you have that understanding and you can empathize with them, I think that really creates a bit of a connection between the humans. Then it's the time to talk about what we do, the bridge, right? And that is then the AI design sprint. You say, okay, well, the good news is I understand that. I know how we can get there. We do have a method that we can deliver to you. And it takes, it can take 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Let's see how we want to go. And it's called the AI design sprint. And then from that, I can then pair the journey to what they're trying to do. So if they're talking about, I don't know, they're a finance company trying to optimize their reporting structure so their financial accountants can just focus on doing the work rather than just doing their reporting. I can relate every step of the process back to their pain and then link it then to the outcome and say, we'll opportunity map how we're going to automate those reports, but also link to your data and also figure out how those reports can be, again, generated by themselves, things like that. And then once you start talking that language, they understand it. Because I think the curse of knowledge we have is workshoppers, consultants, what strategy directors, whatever your title is the curse of knowledge, where you can start to talk to them about, hey, here's an exercise, and here's another exercise, and here's a workshop style, and the person's like, I don't know, I'm just paying you to get an outcome. So I try to bring it in strategically at the right time, but only when I understand the top level pains and journey we're taking them on. And then it's like, the hook is, don't worry, I have this perfect how, and this is how we're going to do it together. And then the what is, and then you get into how you deliver an AI design sprint. And it seems to work really well because you're talking their language and you don't have to go down the levels of how and what if you feel they don't really want to get into the detail, because some people don't. But the point I think is just to be super relatable to them and go back to being the guide as always. So it's a dance. There's no right or wrong answer to it, but I just think start with the need state, then bring in the framework after when the time's right.
What are the top 3 pains challenges that you've seen?
Mainly, I would say fear being number one, FOMO. And to get more explicit on that, I mean, a competitor has already started to do something in this space we've seen. We are not equipped to do that yet. We're not sure where to start. We have an AI committee which doesn't understand AI, but they all represent heads of departments. How do we start this journey quickly? So I think fear is the primer, and strategy is the solution to that. So usually that's the first thing I see. Second is more to do with, again, efficiency. It's the most commonly used thing. Can we automate this? Can we generate reports better? Can we take a mundane process and train something internally to do some of that legwork or all of it, so it frees our people up? The third one actually is quite interesting because it's, again, going back to our data conversation. It's like, how can I ingest data, almost like normalize it somewhat, and then visualize it outwardly so we can use it for business intelligence? So how can I use the AI toolkit to take all this input and give us faster visual outputs to make human beings give faster decisions to problems? And I see that a lot in, I guess, numbers-driven games like, fintech and insurtech, things where essentially human beings need to digest information. And obviously our brains are wired for shapes, not numbers. So if we can, again, this is back to my augmentation comment from earlier, if a human being can work with an AI together, crunch the numbers with AI, validate with a human being, and understand what to do to send it back to the client, I think that's a beautiful dance to have once you have that relationship set up between you and your AI bot friend. So it's definitely FOMO, it's definitely efficiency, and there's definitely data into visual solutions. So that's the trend I'm seeing at the minute. But the list could go on because everyone's always asking me, hey, can we use Gen AI to build videos and et cetera, but it's never with a use case at the minute. It's usually just, can we just do it? And I'm always asking, well, why? What does it bring to you as a business? What value? So they're the top 3, I would say right now, but it's a long list.
Yeah. Let's go into innovation and how AI can help in that space. You told me when we last spoke about your idea of building internal AI labs within companies. Could you explain what that is?
I would say the AI lab is a vision. It's a big one. And the reason I'm saying that is the goal really has to be, yes, come in as a consultant or as a person helping a client and start the process, build the strategy, prove it with a proof of concept, and then make a product or service out of it. That's the first steps in the journey. But once you've done that, I would imagine most companies will want the ability to do that themselves over time. So as a person leading the way in this, then you'd have to then think about the idea of, it's kind of this 3 trifecta effect. It's like the hero, the guide, and the sage. The consultant will come in as the hero and help them like maybe build something or create something. The guide will facilitate them as a team to work it out and get alignment on it. The sage is then like the way to educate people in this. So once you've done that, you should be then thinking about, how can I empower the teams I work with to also understand, what we've built and why, the strategy and the POC or the product. What can they do to learn about this AI thing that's happening so they understand it, and then get normal in the business, normalize it more. But the AI lab, I guess, is like the third and probably the final tier, because once you have a lab, that's when a company will dedicate resource inside that business with the trained staff, with the AI tools working in place already. And they're essentially then probably putting people out of jobs who do the consultancy to a degree. But they're essentially creating their own innovations with AI and data baked into it. And again, helping them become more prepared for that autonomous future. And for me, this is like it's probably a 5-year thing. It could be less because this is quite a fast tech, but it's a step-by-step thing to get to an AI lab. But I also believe it's the unlock between the companies that will win and the companies that will just get left behind, because they'll have, when you think about AI now, there's like the 5 levels of AI, consciousness type thing. And level 1 being like chatbots and ChatGPT, level 2 being where we are now, I believe, like reasoning. Level 3 is then when you get into this part where an AI lab will be quite useful, where agents are running key parts of your business or processes, and you're essentially, in the agentic future, I think the term is there, so it's a lot of futures talk here, but that's what I believe. So in my world, I see it as like, first we have to educate people just to even do the simplest thing, like a strategy, maybe a chatbot, then get them to a point where the AI can start to reason on their data because you've got data feeding it. Then you've got them to a point where they've got agents running in their company. And that's why I see the lab being that kind of like orchestrator of this internal innovation, but also spinning out new ideas. Because obviously, level 4 of this whole AI journey being it can start to create and ideate new ideas for us, which is the scary part. And the lab itself would then almost like manage that as well. And strangely, I don't see it being, I see the lab being quite far away, but the ideation from AI being now. Like if I run a workshop and I asked the clients or the team to run like an exercise called 10 for 10, where you do like, 10 ideas in 10 minutes in rapid succession, I'll also maybe do that with an AI and see what that comes up with. And if I put all those ideas on the board anonymously, you'd be surprised how many of those ideas are like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. It's like, that's a synthetic idea. So it's already kind of here, but I'm just talking in terms of like big corporates normalizing this at the level that is, across, multiple geographics, multiple offices. So I think you probably need that lab, and it already happens, right? There's already innovation labs in companies. We work with a large management consultancy, Infinum. I'm not sure if we can say it or not, but they have their own innovation lab, innovation budgets, and they're just constantly putting out new products and services. And it makes sense because they want to stay ahead of the competition. So this is just the evolution of that, but with AI at its core, So yeah, it's a big vision, but I think that's where we're all heading, whether I say it or not, to be honest. I'm just trying to articulate it to hopefully give some narrative and guidance to companies in the future. Yeah, good question.
And what tips do you have to have good collaboration between the human and AI when it comes to innovation and creativity?
I think you just need, first of all, to understand what tools you need. And like I say to companies, you don't need to build your own tools. You don't need to create something that's already been invented. There's companies that have done great work already. And like a product in the business where you would paint or draw out a user story, user journey, so Chris starts here, he goes to here, then buys a thing here, then gets a receipt here, and da-da-da-da. If you look at it, this is what I've done it myself. If you look at what you're doing for a workshop, for example, right? The first thing I'm doing is I'm doing stakeholder interviews to figure out what the pain points are. there's no reason why you couldn't start that with your own, whether you use a frontier model like, Claude AI or ChatGPT or other off-the-shelf stuff, or you have your own open source ones like Llama, whatever that is, you could use that to capture the information of those interviews and start to use that to crunch the data to spot different directions, different trends that people might be saying. And what it's doing is it's cutting down your time by giving you a summary in rapid succession. Or you can even use, things like Otter AI, for example, when you're having conversations like this. Obviously get the approval of the person first, but you're transposing in real time. And then you've already cut down that workflow, which you can then turn into an agenda and which you can then automate that for speed. And just going through the steps I do to kind of do workshops now, I'm looking at what I can do to speed up my own things. For every step I take in my own user journey, there's an AI something there to help me either speed up or get more options or just generally like be more efficient. So I think it is just a case of what I'm trying to do is be, like I was saying before, the proof of concept. Like if I can practice what I preach on myself and I can show it in a real time sense, go into companies and saying, we can do this in your business, but on a much larger scale, this is where the value will come. If I'm saving so much time, just little me with my little AI bots and stuff now, imagine that on a 1,000, 10,000, global company across their like big processes, So I just really feel you just need to understand what you're doing first and then pair the tools accordingly against it. So for example, I'm not saying I'm going to do this, but digital twins is a thing at the minute. I've got an AI version of myself that I've tried to use. It's kind of void of emotion at the minute, but I'm training it. And you can do conversations like this. I'm not saying I would do because I think that'd be quite weird. But if I wanted to say, get a message out. So, okay, here's a good example. I've just written and updated our product strategy handbook at Infinum. It's about a 100-page document. It's massive. No one's going to read 100 pages of literature, I don't think. So if I was to break that down into chapters, I could get AI me, my digital twin, to just kind of ingest that data and just talk about it on the video so you can listen to it, watch it. It's a lot more easier to digest, rather than me recording every single chapter, and then even that data turned into a video could be used for things like social media posts, ads, shorts, so you can start to see how just by automating stuff with your chosen tool, you can start to exponentially get more value out of your time, which is really all that matters, if I'm honest with you. It's like, how do you maximize time in your life and your business? And I think AI is I'm not saying it's the solution, but it's like a very helping part of that solution. So yeah, that's why I'm, all in on that kind of thing. So I want to maximize my life and maximize my time with clients and their businesses and do meaningful work. And I just think we can do more with AI.
Sounds like imagination will play a big role on on finding ways how to use AI, because it can be so many different things. So we have to think about, okay, what can we do?
You're so true. Yeah, it really is. And this is why I think, I always sort of say the autonomous future's over there. We're in the augmented present right now. And I think rather than using your time doing that really laborious report or crunching numbers on a Google sheet, like our creativity really is the last thing that human beings are going to be bringing to the equation. So we should be using our time to do what you're saying. Imagine solutions and futures and ways we can leverage this technology, because it's kind of here to stay. So yeah, I think that's a big part of this whole conversation. And if you're struggling, I guess that's where you bring in, 33A consultants or workshoppers or strategy directors. We will just stimulate and help you navigate through this, because once you get that idea jar open, I find it usually has lots of ideas and you can't stop it. So this is why I think the strategy part is so important. I always talk about like workshop to get the ideas out, strategize to prioritize and map those ideas, test it with a product if you can, some kind of product proof of concept. But the whole time wrapped around that is AI and data. I think that's where we're trying to get to with this new world. Some people are trying to jump back and integrate it back into products, where actually if you do it as an AI native company or native products, you can really make amazing things happen without having to re-engineer the wheel. So it's an exciting future, right? I'm quite
How do you train your imagination as a consultant on this topic?
So my hack, which is a very simple hack, by the way, is I have to prescribe to as many other authorities that are doing the same kind of work that I want to do. So I have to first imagine myself as the people that are doing this work. So there's some great newsletters out there at the minute that have like Superhuman and various other things. Every day you're just getting news. You're getting news. So you're already seeing use cases happening in the real world. I recently read something from the Board of Innovation, great company that do AI. They have a playbook of the age of AI, and they're talking about where we're going, what we can use now and in the future. So I think you have to really love the subject matter to kind of go as deep as I do. It probably comes across how excited I get about this, but I think when people are stuck for ideas and stuck for imagination on where to go, I think you just need to do that classic research where you can just lean into the different pillars of excellence that are already doing this work, because there's lots out there now, and you'll just be awash with different inspirations and concepts. And the linkage there is, how do you then prioritize those endless ideas? AI design sprint. That's how you do it. That's how you prioritize them out. So also a great question, because I do find we're in the age of like over saturated knowledge just landing on us daily. So it is trying to like mitigate that and trying to get some focus. But but I just talk to people as well. That's the other thing. Talking to clients really is a great research for me. I'm always thinking, you've got a problem and there's a solution there, but I'm always thinking, how does AI help that solution?
You talked before about the 5 stages of AI. And so the first one is chatbots. The second one is reasoning. The third would be AI labs. The fourth would be coming up with new ideas. What is the fifth one?
Well, the fifth one, I'm actually going to get the official thing up here that talks about it, because I think this is really important, because level 5, I guess, the way that OpenAI talks about it is like autonomous organizations. And this is this is what my goal is right now is, I love innovation, technology and products, right? I've done it forever. But I now see they are kind of old news, just like, analog telephones and things were back in the 90s, So level 5 is a fully autonomous company. And that could be something as crazy as a one-person company with agents working for him or her. The reality is that's one avenue, but the reality is there are millions of companies in the world that they can't start again and be AI native. They have to be kind of like an AI tourist today and progress towards being AI native. So, you would never turn your business fully over to an AI tomorrow, because, that'd be crazy, right? So the journey we have to take people on is, people empowered by the AI design sprint framework and as consultants, is we have to take them on this journey of going through the levels to get to level 5. Almost think of it like a child. Your child has to go through nursery, primary school, secondary school, college. You never say to them, hey, go and get a master's degree in science, right? Because they'll be like, I'm a child. I can't do that. So it's the same, but I think it's the same thing with companies. You have to take them through that. And I think going back to the AI lab concept, that would essentially come in around level 3, level 4, but it'll be the bootloader to a fully autonomous business then, because it will be the thing that is managing the existing innovations, training and working with people in the business to, connect the two, and also coming up with newer ideas, possibly with AI and humans augmented working together. And the reason I say that is because an easy example is if you ask ChatGPT, right, to write you a LinkedIn post, we all know it comes back slightly dry and a bit obvious it's AI. It's not perfect, but it has like maybe some great information. So the human being doing the amendment of that on top of the AI generated work, that's your augmentation to kind of finesse and make a better solution. So I see that as like a really micro example. But yeah, also put that on a scale with AI solutions, working around the clock. That's level 5, like, fully autonomous companies. So, and again, I'm talking big future, but it all starts with a strategy and a workshop, which is why I've gone all in on like facilitation makes AI. I just think it's the unlock to all of this.
Yeah, and this is a future that many people are afraid of, because will AI replace us? And what will we do then? And AI and 33A is all about, okay, AI should empower people, not replace. But then, how do we make sure that happens?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we don't end up in the future like from Wall-E, where everyone is in front of a
Oh man,
screen sitting all the day.
yeah, slightly overweight and just flying around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a terrifying and fun future equally. But yeah, you're
How
so
do we
true. I
prevent
mean,
that, in your opinion?
how do we stop becoming the Wall-E future? So I think this goes right back to the start of what we talked about in terms of how the AI design sprint isn't just about opportunities in tech. It also bakes in people and ethics. And I think the best we can do as a human race is always have that as an anchor into every solution we come up with. And basically, what I'm saying is we have to be sure that we'll always want to augment and improve with AI. That's just part of our nature. The moment it starts to replace full jobs and not provide other jobs for people, that's where I think as a species, we have to look at the kind of, again, the ethics. Like, well, what does it mean for people and how can we upskill those people? And I always hear people say this, well, if some jobs get replaced, new jobs will come in, and people always argue, well, what if you're a 60-year-old person, you're not a tech person? I think the way AI is going at the minute, I know this for a fact from being that kind of nerdy engineer who used to try and do LLM on my own computer, and now I can literally just plug and play it pretty much. I think accessibility to AI technologies will become easier as much as it spreads into society. And I think that will unlock other things for people because of it. So I don't necessarily see a world where we get replaced. All I see is, and I think you probably heard this a lot, right? I hear it all the time. It's not the technology that's going to replace people. It's the people with the technology. Everyone says this all the time. So I think it's about education. It's about ethics. And it's about the human factors. And that's really what I like to fly as a flag. It's like, we're just here to help educate you first of all. And like every technology, it's how you use that tech will determine your reality going forward. So I don't think we have to worry so much about the risk of Wall-E just yet. But I think we are at that very critical part in our timeline as humans to go, well, what does it mean to be human, and what does it mean to use this technology as part of our lives? So that's why I'm always trying to talk about the augmented present, because we already are augmented. We already use phones and all these other things just as standard. And the generation, Generation Alpha, is it next? The young kids that are coming up now that are like babies now, they're just not going to understand AI as a separate thing. It's just going to be in everything. Like data's like everywhere now. It's just going to be there. So we have to just be careful that we're constantly educating and building these strategies that bake in ethics and education. As a nice segue back to the 33A framework, I just think it has to be that. And no matter how big you future gaze or how small the solution is, that has to be in every aspect of the innovation. Otherwise, we're just hoping and risking on AI just doing stuff for us. And as we know, it will speed up chaos as fast as it will speed up success. So we need to always bake that in. And ideally not give the world over to a sentient robot like in Wall-E. That would be great too. But
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
matter of culture and making a decision as humankind, let's say, to put people above profits
yeah,
in this area.
yeah. It's human capital. Yeah, efficiency is great, but human capital is the thing. Like, people matter. It's about how do you improve lives of people with the technology, not replace their lives with the technology.
Yeah. Do you have any last remarks? Anything that you would like to add to this discussion?
I think anyone that is watching this, first of all, thank you. But secondly, I don't fear the fact that AI is here. Don't fear the fact that the technology will be here to stay for a long time. Lean into people that are experts in AI and just ask questions, like ask for help, ask for some guidance, because it's a complicated subject matter in principle, but with someone guiding you through it, it can actually be much easier than you think. And I think with education, that diminishes ignorance and fear. So actually seek out guides and educators in this space and seek out facilitators with this framework as well to help. Even if you don't build anything for a year, just get a plan, just start. The longest, it's quite cheesy this actually, but the longest journey starts with a single step. That single step is just doing a workshop together, just to get your people together and talk about this thing as a business and where it's going to take you in the future. Yeah, just get started and try and maximize your business happiness and minimize the sadness and fear with education around the subject. So that's my final thought.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was a great chat. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the AI Playbook with 33A. I'm Ellie Nicolau, and I'll see you next time.